basic knowledge as possible. So I'll try as much as possible not to go into too much details. And the objectives of this training is to enlighten stakeholders of the impacts of their activities on the environment, create awareness on the need to minimize our impacts on the environment, introduce the concept of environmental management systems to both government and business endeavors, sensitize and encourage organizations to adopt and implement ISO 14000 series as a tool to effectively manage their environmental footprints, and provide guidance on the route to achieving certification to ISO 14000 series. Next slide. But no, the first one. Before we go into that, I like so that because I know that most people here have not actually are not environmental scientists or medical doctors or food specialists, or so I just want to talk a little bit on the basic concept so that we can all be on the same page and we have an understanding. And this is basic ecology. It's a fundamental course in environmental management, and what we say is that there's no such thing as a free lunch. Every action you take on the environment, there's a consequence to that as well. Emissions disperse, but nothing disappears. Yesterday we talked about persistent organic pollutants and how you can release something here and somebody impact on somebody in Canada, in Iceland, in Brazil. The sun is the source of all energy, and that's self-productive. Basically, every scientist understands that concept. And we talked yesterday about the greenhouse effect and how climate change issues have come on. It's all tied together. The main drivers of concern are finite resources, which we are now talking about up to 14,000 and resource efficient and cleaner production. So our main areas of concern are about finite resources. Nothing is so much, especially natural resources. They are finishing resources, petroleum, our forests, our water resources. They are all finite resources. Byproducts and pollution, air, land, and water. And then we are worried about the health, because everything we talk about, everything we do is about human beings and the environment, the animals that are in the system, the biodiversity issues. These are the critical issues. And so when we talk about the environment, we're talking about the carrying capacity of the environment, what we call carrying capacity. If we overpollute the environment, we pay dire consequences, like what we are seeing with climate change presently. So the critical thing is that for resource efficient agreement production, what we talk about is that the resources you get, resources, whether it is from the forest or from the ground or from anywhere, natural resources, lithium, coal, name them, you produce. And then you produce your energy, you produce your goods, whatever, and then you consume, and then you waste. Yesterday, Ogade was asked the question about linear economy, and that is what has been for a very, very long time. Resource extraction, production, consumption, and then waste. But all these things go into the environment, and if we don't manage it properly, we pay consequences. Next slide. What makes the world unique and beautiful are the natural resources that abound. The oceans, the waters, the rainforests, the flowers, and the people. This is what makes this world such a beautiful place. And yesterday we said we live probably in the finest part of the planet Earth. Unfortunately, we've not utilized this gift that God has given to us effectively in this part of the world. Next slide. But our world is changing because the environment is in danger. The issues, the critical issues are the issues of pollution, the issues of climate change, the issues of oil spills, the issues of environmental degradation. This here you can see the slides basically show what is happening in Nigeria. These are Nigerian scenarios. Next slide, but we'll get into that. Harmful effects of human activity on the biophysical environment. health effects, air pollution, water pollution, all forms of pollutions that occur. Industry and motor exhaust systems, because the amount of nitrous oxide, sulfur oxides that come from exhaust systems, that's why there's a lot of problems. The whole world is now trying to mass transit systems. We are in the year of our Lord 2025. Nigeria is everybody to move from one place to another was living one private car or one small car. The world is moving that you put mass transit systems that can move large numbers, reducing our carbon footprint. You know, things that can move a large number of people at a time. So, combustion of fossil fuels, well, like we said yesterday, the dangers that are associated with fossil fuel use are huge. But like I equally said, we must weigh it from both sides: development, economy, and the use of fossil fuel. I am on the side of Donald Trump that you use your natural resources to develop your system. When you have developed them, you can, because we have basic challenges that we need to meet. Water, oil spills, acid rain, urban runoff. Acid rain, anybody that has lived in a place like River State, and that's why when people cry and shout and all that, most of us don't understand the challenges that they have faced. If you buy a long span roofing sheet in Port Harcourt that is supposed to last you for about 25, 30 years, within 5 to 10 years, the thing is already leaking. There's discoloration, and we inhale all these things. So these are real challenges that people are facing. Urban runoffs, the drainage systems, pollution from, we talked yesterday about the issues in Chalawa and Sharada and Bompa in Kano with the textile mills and how the things are getting into the Chalawa River. And people downstream are using this water. So these are critical issues. Soil pollution, industrial waste, plastics, heavy metal contamination, and the half-life of plastics. Everybody will, right now, the whole world is now crying about microplastics, fish, planktons, these things we dump every day pure water, we drink, we throw it about, and then they get into the drainage systems and get into the water bodies. And ultimately, all these things end up in the oceans and the seas. And there's what we call bioaccumulation. These things, fish, planktons, and animals, they get into them and they eat, and then as they come up the food chain, they bioaccumulate. But these are topics for other days. Global warming results from emission of greenhouse gases, and especially we talked yesterday about issues of global warming, and I hope we all remember we said we measure greenhouse gas emissions in terms of carbon dioxide equivalents, and we talked about clean development mechanisms and the carbon trading issues and all that. So global warming, I said, was probably the greatest challenge that humanity is facing right now. And it's going to be a critical challenge for quite a long time, at least in the near future. And we have to find a way to overcome the issues of climate change. Next slide. I'm going as fast as so that we can get into the main thing, but I want us to understand how RECP and ISO 14,000 theories tie in together. Ozone layer depletion, we mentioned it yesterday about the chlorofluorocarbons, about refrigerant gases that come out from air conditioning systems, from refrigerators, and a lot of activities. But thank God, a lot of these have been phased out. And most modern fridges and air conditioning systems don't use CFCs any longer. But we have our old systems that are. So when you see all these people that repair fridges, they just cut, and then you say, shh, that used to be chlorocarbons that get into the environment, and these are the things that deplete the ozone layer. And we mentioned that the ozone layer, the challenge is things like cancer, skin cancer, about a lot of other health challenges. Next slide. Consequences of global warming, deforestation. Next slide. Let's just. I want to move as faster. You will get this slide so you can have it. Acid rain I've mentioned. Natural resource depletion I've mentioned.
shortages of resources like food, intensive agriculture leading to use of environmental damaging substances such as pesticides, chemical fertilizers, and insecticides. We mentioned the issue of Stockholm Convention yesterday, if you remember. We talked about persistent organic pollutants. There's a project that had been run before by Federal Ministry of Environment, African Stockpile Project, where they try to get a lot of expired pesticides that were stored in several places around the country because these things contain chlorine and fluorides and all that, and that they are very harmful. They are what we call persistent organic pollutants. And well, this one is about showing you what plastics can do. That's a turtle. They're trapped in plastic and all that. But next slide. Extinction of species and habitats. But next slide. Well, the challenge, all these are just about the challenges that we face globally. Movement from high density to no problem, urban areas to low density areas. Thus clogging the environment. What's happening from Abuja? This used to be such a serene, beautiful area. Now, Abuja's population, 2,000, and we used to say 5 million. I'm sure we're over 12 million now in Abuja. If you get to areas like Wakwalada now, it's the number of people, Kubwa, and all those areas. When I get to those places, I feel so worried for people because there's so little space to maneuver and do things. Next slide. Well, I personally always put this because I always like we are all Nigerians. Deal. We must understand each other's problems. We are talking about the Ogoni issues and the huge resource efficient and cleaner production issues. We must start telling ourselves some home truths. If Shell had practiced effective resource efficiency and cleaner production systems, we wouldn't be, the Ogoni people wouldn't be in the mess that they have been. They have lost lives. We have people have been killed for challenging the system. But the point is that there's a critical problem, and Nigeria has made so much money from Ogoni land, but nobody has ever cared and worried about what the people have gone through. And so I put these so that people get an idea. This is a gas flaring site in Ogoni land, oil spills in mangrove swamps. And don't forget that the mangrove is such a critical ecosystem. That is where fish, that is where mollusks, that is where snails breed. So shrimps and the rest of them, that's their breeding ground. But apart from that, they stop coastal erosion. It is very, 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 very important. That is what the mangrove is mainly about. That's why you see those stills, they are long stills, roots that come above the water because they breathe through those roots. And because of that, they hold the soil together. And because we have used oil pollution, the mangrove is virtually going. If you get to places like Ogoni or Andoni, you will see that nipa palms, what we call nipa palms, place. And so erosion is getting into the hinterlands and destroying the environment. And they are losing a lot of land, fishing grounds, but most of all pollution is real. Next slide. These are all these are pictures from Ogoni land. Just want to have an idea of what when the people are crying, you understand where they are coming from. Their land, their soils have been destroyed. But remediation, high prep is doing some work. Let's hope that it will be done well at the end of the day. But all these things tie into what we are talking about resource efficient and cleaner production mechanisms. We don't have to go through this over and over. Next slide. The solution to the issues and effects highlighted in the above slides, and that's why I've tried to put those pictures there. Perhaps the solution to all the issues pertaining to pollution, resources, and effects on the environment could have been eliminated or at least minimized if a sound environmental management system were in place in the areas where these events occurred. And the people that created these problems all understood this issue because oil is produced in Europe, oil is produced in the United States of America. This thing cannot happen in Texas. It cannot happen in Norway. It won't happen in Denmark. Oil is produced in all those places. And so they practice resource efficient and cleaner production mechanisms there. They understand ISO systems there. But Our people allow them and they get away with murder. Here, next slide. Nigeria is a signatory to several global conventions and protocols and all that. And we talked about them yesterday. So I will not, we talked about Kyoto, which is about global war. We've dealt with it in detail. That's where the development mechanism is used. That's why the joint implementation issues were. So we'll not go back there. It's about Montreal Protocol on the area depletion. The Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste and their Disposal. Of course, that's a very strong and powerful global tool to control pollution. It's about, if we remember, some of us, it's basically nothing, but it's good that we are here just to learn a little bit. If we remember the cocoa disaster, there was a man that lived in Cocoa. Cocoa is a seaport in Delta State, and some people brought in shiploads of waste. He didn't know the problem. It was toxic waste in containers. It was big news in Nigeria, and he accepted it, and it was stored in warehouses there beside him. Not stories that the man died, and they lost a lot of people, and ultimately it was found out that it was more or less like nuclear or chemical waste that were dumped there, shipped all the way from Europe into our country. And the little money that the man made, that was cost him his life. But these are the things. So the world had to come up with a convention, which is called the Basel Convention, that says that you cannot transport your waste from Europe or from your own to another country and put there. There must be things to ensure that weaker nations are protected. There is even the Bamako Convention, rights from the Basel Convention, but it's an African convention. After all that cocoa and all those other crises, Africa came together and decided we're going to put a convention of our own that is even stronger than the Basel Convention to protect countries. So you can't move waste from one country to the other country without the other country's knowledge and acceptance. But whether we implement slide. Environmental management system. So we've just done a basic picture of why environmental management system. We've seen what challenges are, why take the seriously. And I'll say for the next 50, 100 years, the environment is going to be in the world, especially climate change. So let's move into the ISO series. Sustainable development is achieved by balancing the environment, society, and the economy. Systemic approach to environmental management is becoming the norm. And that's why you are all here. That's why these lectures are being held. IEE, RECP, healthcare waste issues, global national adaptation, nationally determined contributions, all those things. It's become the norm, and it's becoming very, very important. Next. Environmental aspects and impacts. We'll get into this much later about, and we'll probably do an exercise on that. Air emissions, air pollution, energy use, fossil fuel depletion. And don't forget that yesterday I told you guys that even though we are doing IEE, that G is equally a resource, right? We said that yesterday. Packaging, landfill, transportation, air pollution, wastewater, water pollution. This, what I've tried to do here is that there's an aspect. Aspect is the activity, what causes this thing, right? And then the impacts are what results from your activity. But let's waste time on this. Let's take something like wastewater, so you just get a hang of what I'm saying. Wastewater that comes out from a chemical plant or a dry cleaning service or from any system, a hospital, if it is not managed properly, will lead to water pollution, right? That's the impact of that aspect. Okay, but like I said, we'll do exercises on this. We'll look at it later on. Next slide. It's still talking about the same things. What the aspects are: severity of impact, probability of impact, legal issues, business objectives. But when we get into the details of looking at all of it, we'll do that. Next slide. IEE RECP approach. IEE and RECP approach can be understood as a systematic, target-driven, and pragmatic process for the facilitation of the exchange of experiences and ideas, the implementation of an efficient and effective sustainable energy and environmental management in industries and enterprises in general, and more specifically, within a limited group of typically independent enterprises or sites within one company. The overall output is the ISO 50001, which is the ISO standard that deals with energy. Sure, my colleague has mentioned that the energy systems, the ISO standard that deals with it is the 50,000 series. And ISO 14,000 series, deals with environmental management systems. So 50,000 series, 14,000 series. That's what we are here for these few days. Next slide. What is ISO standard? A standard is a document that provides requirements, specifications, guidelines, or characteristics that can be used consistently to ensure that materials, products, processes, and services are fit for their purpose. So it covers the whole gamut of production, procurement, conceptualization of your product, to procurement processes, to production processes, to distribution systems, to maintenance of your facilities. Yesterday we talked about things like procurement, we talked about housekeeping, but when we get into details of the ISO system, we'll touch it briefly again. What are the benefits of the ISO international standards? International standards bring technological, economic, and societal benefits. They help to harmonize technical specifications of products and services, making industry more efficient and breaking down barriers to international trade. Conformity to international standards helps reassure consumers that products are safe, efficient, and good for the environment. ISO international standards provide practical tools for tackling many of today's global challenges, from managing global water resources to the safety of the food we eat. Standards can help businesses and organizations all over the world make progress in the three pillars of sustainable development. The three pillars of sustainable development are the environment, the economy, and the society. The social issues. Yesterday, I showed that picture where there were three circles: social, economy, environment. These are the pillars of sustainable development. National standards on air, water, and soil quality, on emissions of gases and radiation, and environmental aspects of products contribute to efforts to preserve the environment and the health of citizens. So, important, we cannot separate the social, the one important needs. If you pollute the environment, it has impact on health. Okay, if people are not well, it has impacts on the social well-being. So it is about sustainability of the whole series. Well, the ISO 14,000 series are many. You start from 14,000 down to 1466. So we're just going to concentrate on one ISO of the 14,000 series, which is the what we are doing, RECP. And like I said, is ISO. Okay, the other parts feed into it, but we cannot do the ISO 14. If we need to do it, it's a full week's training and lecture, because it's about auditing. It's about, there are so many other these things. ISO 14,000 standards are designed environmental management systems, which is ISO 14,001, environmental auditing, environmental performance evaluation, environmental labeling. So even labeling of your products has that if you want to succeed in the international marketplace, okay? Life cycle assessment. Yesterday we talked about the circular economy, life cycle assessment for industries and all that. But these are things we will that will be done in the field. Environmental product standards. ISO 14,001 used for any of several purposes, such as creating an environmental management system, auditing an environmental management system, seeking third-party certification, seeking customer recognition of an environmental management system, declaring an environmental management system to the general public. Something like seeking third-party certification and seeking customer recognition. If most products, yesterday we talked about that, if you buy a lot of products, especially in the OECD countries, you will see made from recycled materials. So these things are now becoming very, very, very critical. If you want to export from here to America or to Europe, there are so many conditions you have to meet. If you say a product is organic, and these are part of the resource efficient cleaner production things that we must understand, you cannot put that label organic on a product if it met certain critical criteria. How do you source your material? How is your material produced? How do you source it? How is it transported? How in your manufacturing process, is it a fact that the treatment system, no chemical gets into it, it's all natural? Because when you claim organic, it means it is 100% natural. And these are, and when they say 100% natural, it's not just about just the production process. It's from where the thing is harvested, how you grew your crops, how you did all those things. And so it's a whole gamut. And unless you can prove that to them, you cannot put that label organic on your product. And so these are the things that we must understand if we are in, we run industries, for us to be able to access the international market. After the rapid acceptance of ISO 9000, which is about quality assessments, that's around the world, for standards, okay? And I said there are about over 19,000 standards globally. It touches every aspect of human endeavor. The way you work, office, food production, restaurants, name it. Standards are there for it. Yeah? You say, yeah, that's why there are up to 19,000 of them. But we're just dealing with one today. Um, the, the need for international environmental standards, they formed this strategic advisory group on the environment, said in 1991, to promote a common approach to environmental management similar to quality management, enhance organizations' ability to attain measurement in environmental performance, and facilitate trade and remove trade barriers. You know, uh, general what on tariffs and trade. Eh? Yeah, GATT. It deals with tariffs. Why I always remember is that because Trump is now about tariffs. But the ISO these things deal with standards, environmental standards. Okay, next slide. Why have these standards? The primary objective of the ISO 14,000 series of standards is to promote effective environmental systems in organizations. The standards seek to provide customer tools that make use of best practices for organizing and applying information about environmental management. A set of international standards brings a worldwide focus on the environment, encouraging a cleaner, safer, healthier world for all. The existence of the standards allows organizations to focus environmental efforts against an internationally accepted criteria. A single standard will ensure that there are no conflicts between regional interpretations of good environmental practice. The fact that companies may need environmental management certification to compete in the global marketplace could easily overshadow all ethical reasons for environmental management. All this grammar is that there's a need. Why the global standards had come up is that there's a need, and there was a need for there to be a way of measuring if we are meeting quality, impacts on the environment, impacts on health. Yesterday we talked about adaptation plan, and I said it is multi-sectoral. That we talked that federal works impacts on, they have their own adaptation plans in their own sector. Health is developing their own sectoral adaptation plans. Agriculture, because they all impact activities in all these different areas, impact on the environment and the management systems. And so all that we've said here is that there was a need, and there is a need to have a global standard for measuring whether we are meeting the criteria. And if you have to compete in the international market space, you have to meet these standards. But most of all is that you have to ensure that our activities are not creating more problem for the environment and the planet in which we live. Everything we talk about, when we finish saying everything and doing everything, is about the human beings and the biosystem that exists here. We have generations that are coming behind us. If we pollute and destroy everything and go, then that means it might be the end of humanity. If you know what we are talking about. I'm not saying that's going, but that's why there's a need to start early to start correcting all these things. Next slide. ISO 14,000 family of standards. I said there are several, so many of them. So 14,001, 14,040, 14,000. I told you gets to 16, 60 something. So let's not, but this is to show you it's not, but we are just dealing with ISO 14,001, which is what RECP is around. Okay, next. The essence of successful environmental management. An environmental management system is basically a management tool to oversee the various environmental aspects of a company's activities in a systematic way. It is part of the overall management system that includes organizational structure, planning activities, responsibilities, practices, procedures, processes, and resources for developing, implementing, achieving, and maintaining the environmental policy. What did I say yesterday about management and the in a company, in an organization, that just like we have in the health and safety system, I said that the person in charge of RECP in an organization, what did I say? The structure must be. Thank you. That is critical in an environmental management system. Because, like I said, if you put it that is just an ordinary worker, a manager like any other person, the senior managers, general will block. We don't have funds, we don't have resources. We are talking about we don't have enough money for material, enough money to maintain this. And he's talking about, management systems, about bringing in environmental auditors to come and assess our system, about bringing in people that will come and check whether our bulb systems, the energy consumptions and all that. Because these things cost money, you have to pay. But on the long run, it is cheaper for the company if these things are done correctly. And so there must be a difference between the RECP manager and the organization, especially the managing director. Yes, please. You have a loud voice, so I don't think you need this mic. You have a loud voice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So it is well understood that without having direct access, because this is a critical issue. We've talked about Shell, we've talked about the Ogoni issues. I don't like mentioning nations anyway. But these are critical issues that must be understood in any company, that the environmental management system, the placement and implementation must be driven by the top management of the organization. Okay? Yes. Next slide. Why is an environmental management system necessary? Consider the following scenarios involving environmental issues we participate in. We talked about this yesterday, so we won't waste time on it. And we said yesterday that each ton of recycled paper can save 17 trees. Each ton. You need at least 17 trees to produce 1 ton. And if you know the amount of papers, you remember yesterday we said, thank God that man remembered to do front and back. A lot of people do just one-sided printing now. But when you think about it, that you can have the amount of trees that are cut for producing paper by just using front and back. But you can even save a lot more by using everything online. In our office, we don't do anything. I don't expect anybody, if you want to send anything to me, you send it online to me, and I reply. It's faster, it's cleaner. I can even make corrections much more easily, and it's easier to store. So, these are all part of what we're trying to teach, to cut down on resource wastage. 350 gallons of oil. Each ton of recycled paper can save 17 trees, 380 gallons of oil, 3 cubic yards of landfill space, 4,000 kilowatts of energy, and 7,000 gallons of water. That is, all these are what you use to make just 1 ton of paper. Okay? So you can imagine the amount of resources, and that comes in again where I say energy is a resource. And then you think of, to generate that energy, the resource you are pouring into it, whether it is diesel, whether it is hydro, what you could have, even if it is, even though it's renewable, what it could have achieved in other sectors. In a system like us, where up to 60% of our people don't have electricity, every time a ton of steel is recycled, it means 2,500 pounds of iron ore, 1,000 pounds of coal, and 40 pounds of limestone will not have to be mined from the earth. So, recycling, reuse. We said there were 4 R's. We'll get there again. But that's showing you how RECP ties into ISO 14001. Okay? Every time a ton of steel is recycled, instead of going to produce steel, we take it. That's what all these boys, apart from the criminal, I support them because we don't have a waste management system that is functional. These boys are bowlers. They do quite a lot of useful work. The recycling, if you get to, but the only problem is that they take all these manhole covers and things like that, and add to. But apart from that, the fact that they pick all these things, all this crap that they pick around, it's saving the earth. It's saving the world because recycling saves so much energy, saves so much resources, and when you recycle, the impact on the environment is lower. Because if you recycle steel, you're not going to mine iron, you're not going to create all over this. We've seen even in road construction, what construction companies, a lot of erosion things that happen are caused by construction companies. If you get to areas like Jos, you will see where people that have tin and the rest, see craters everywhere. But the consequences are so huge. Apart from that they cause and the eyesore, what about the fact that the water collects there and mosquitoes breed in there, sandflies breed in there? So the health impact nobody talks about, but those are critical. So when you do this, you are saving so much in terms of uh, in terms of health, in terms of social impact. Plastics can take up to 400 years to break down in a landfill. And so yesterday I mentioned the issue of pure water sachet that we everywhere, once we just do, you tear it, you just drop it into the gutter. A lot of this things, gradually in a lot of areas, farming has become a challenge because when you dig, you see plastics coming out of the soil. And these things don't degrade. Like I say, some, not, but even these pure water ones will take more than 50 years to degrade. They are lighter, but a lot of plastics take up to 100, 200, 300 years to degrade. So you can imagine doing it over years, decades and decades. And these things, so rather than just throwing them, and that's why, again, I get back to the issue of the babambolas, we have to find a way to make them functional. Because they collect these things. I see a lot of these women now, they collect Coca-Cola bottles, PET bottles, all these things. It's recycling. They are doing a great work, the system. If we can pick up, and even pure water are being collected now, it's recycling. And you don't need to now go through petrochemical to start producing that fresh and burning so much energy. They just crush them into pellets and blow and get them and blow and get all these bags that you use in supermarkets, fresh bottles and all these things. But that's what we are talking about. Next slide. Yes, please. Go ahead, sir. You want a mic? I can hear you at least. Electronic waste. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. It is possible. It's what NGOs are meant to be doing. The point is that we say there's no work. There's so much work to be done in Nigeria. It's just about most of us thinking of that. I mean, somebody could set up an NGO in that line. And like I said yesterday, there's so much global funding for all these activities. If somebody unfortunately, people like us, by the time we knew, we were a bit too old then. But it's a useful idea for young people to think that these things are feasible, can be done. If someone starts an NGO to get babambolas together and train them and all this and make the states more functional, probably go to Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and get into partnership with them because they run a lot of their members. You are the people that use most of these material, electronic waste, steel, whatever. And then these guys get them and they can get them to recycling systems and all that. It's something that can be kept down and thought through, and it is doable. But awareness is critical, and I agree, it is very, very critical. Federal Ministry of Environment, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Federal Ministry of Science and Technology, NASENIA and the rest of them, there's a lot of work to be done. But that's why we are all doing this, and that's why all these ideas are coming up. thinking of it, if we can all direction and like the way forward is usually mostly non-governmental organizations. If you leave everything to government, then we'll never get them done. It's to start and it will give you the backing on what you want to do. The National Orientation Agency. Well, I remember when Jerry Ghana was there. When Jerry Ghana was there, National Orientation Agency was quite an effective organization because then he was young, he was hot, he had come out from the university system, and he really wanted to deliver. These days, of the appointments are political now. That's the thing. It has to be people that have the energy, the ideas, that understand. Okay, so if they are doing it, that's great. What we need to do is to try and get them to be more visible. Uh, it's because what they lack is that visibility. So you've agreed with what we're saying is that it's about the NGO system. It's about you want to talk. That's what we're saying.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please, with regards to the training of the scavengers, is doing that because we have EPR, and EPR has a role where PROs are captured, including the scavengers. So they are informal sector that are being trained. So these NGOs work with the PROs to train these people. Thank you.
So that's the essence of.
Everything is captured from e-waste to plastic, everything. They have their PROs, different PRO for these sectors. Thank you.
Well, it's good. You can clap for Nesri at least. The important thing is that we know that there's consciousness. There's the consciousness is there. The awareness is coming on, and it can be done. Let's upscale it. We have not done enough. We can do better than we are doing. Nigeria is doing quite some work, but most of us don't even know these things. The important thing is visibility. Make it more visible for people. And it's young people like you that will move this country forward. Yeah. National Orientation Agency.
Not Martin Luther, but I have a dream of a day that MDAs will not work in silos. They will see themselves working together towards achieving the same aim. Look at the beautiful thing that Nestra said they are doing. Whatever you are doing in your silos will amount to winking in the dark if the people that should know don't know about it. So the dream is looking forward to a situation where, as MDAs, wherever we are, whatever we are doing, there will be a kind of platform where you can pump up or upload or channel whatever you are doing so that because there's a reason for setting it up. And majority of them are communication experts or information or the red mass come. It's our duty at our level, either as professional institution or institutions or MDAs, to pump things to them so that they can also, in addition to social, all of us have social media, WhatsApp and all of that. In addition to that, so when you supply to them, they will be able to, amplify whatever we are doing. Thank you.
Thank you. So basically, we are all apostles of an improved environmental management system. But like I said, this is why we are here, and that's the consciousness is being built. in our own little enclaves, let's try and do what we can. But like he said, rather than working in silos, there's a need for multi-sectorality where we generate ideas and find ways to share, you know, and build on it. Next slide, please. Well, we said equally yesterday, I mentioned the issue of water. If you get into a factory, these are part of the audits that when you bring an expert on RECP, these are the things he looks out for. Water system, water dropping. We said yesterday that can waste up gallons of water daily, which is enough water to run a dishwasher. Washer twice. We talked about that yesterday, so we waste 1.5 acres of rainforest are lost every second. We mentioned that yesterday through agriculture, through paper production, through bush burning, through so many. 1.5 acres of land is lost every second globally. And if you remember what I said yesterday, especially for those of us who are in the tropics, the rainforest region contains 6% of all the medicinal plants globally and about 6 biodiversity of the world. And that's why countries like Brazil, that's why the whole world is now shouting about the Amazon rainforest, how to preserve it. And that's why we must start thinking seriously about the pollution that is happening in the Niger Delta and in the Niger Delta regions of the country. And equally, the desertification issues that are happening in the north. A lot of these things can be managed more effectively. They are anthropogenic. Yesterday, we explained what it means. Anthropogenic simply means caused by human activities. Okay? 20% of the world's people lack access to safe water supply. That's globally. But in Nigeria, it's much higher. We say 20%, we'd be lying to ourselves because even in Abuja, I don't think up to 20% of Abuja have access to very potable water. We still buy water from these boys, that Merua and all these things. And ISO 14001 can be used for any of several purposes, which we had mentioned before. Next slide. Next. I don't, because I want to go as quickly as possible. The benefits of implementing the ISO 14. What, please? Okay, go back. Okay, then we can be talking about it then. Huh? So management system, ISO 14001, the critical thing to do is that you define the policy where you want to go, okay? How you want to run the organization, how you want to manage your environmental system, how you want to ensure that the company runs on a sustainable system. Then you allocate staff and resources, okay? These are all, that's what you will be trained on in ISO 14001. Determine key issues. What are the environmental issues? Each organization has a different, what somebody that is producing steel is the environmental challenges that they will face, that a chemical plant like a textile factory faces. We talked about Chalawa and all, nickel, lead, or somebody that is producing gold. We know what happened, the gold mining challenges in Zamfara came with a lot of liver and kidney ailments, and WHO had to intervene. Set objectives and targets, plan to meet them, doing it, measurement and monitoring, systems and documentation, documentation. We'll get there. Audit and review, checking if it's working. But Madam, you brought us back, but there'll be more details in future. That's why I moved. Okay. Okay, the benefits of ISO 14000. It saves costs in waste, recycling, and consumption. Okay, less resources if you can. Your production systems, you use less resources. If you recycle your waste. If you what are the other R's? My head is full. Advantage. It has advantage over competitors. It gives you advantage over competitors when tendering for business. Like I said, thank you. I said the 4 R's. Um, the important thing is that we will get there ultimately, because I have used the issue of bidding or sales and the rest of them, that people are now looking for natural products. They are looking for things that are made from recycled materials. Okay. We don't want companies to go and keep getting new resources to produce. And that's why if you get to OECD countries in shops, there it is written boldly, made from recycled materials. So it gives you an advantage if you set your company on that path. Management of environmental risks. You don't want to be part of the burden to the global community, climate change issues, ozone depleting issues, and the rest of them. Compliance with individual countries' environmental regulations. I would have put that here, but the lecture was looking too long, so I had to remove. The NESRIA is there. All right. Solid Waste Management Act is there. There are so many legislative frameworks that are in existence in Nigeria to guide us. The problem we have is not the issue of legislation. The problem we have is the issue of the implementation on this legislation. That is doing a wonderful work, but outside Nigeria, I don't know if any other person is actually pursuing these issues. Although Nigeria sometimes they over pursue. Okay. Huh? Yes, I agree. But sometimes they should just have mercy so that people can. I see that sometimes some companies like Abba and this, they'll call you, please come and. But of course, you talk to them. Well, first to offender, you try to teach them, because a lot of these people don't understand what the issues are. Okay, like their furnaces are burning. They are supposed to be taking stack emissions on a regular basis and all that. But you must teach them that these things are supposed to be done before you start penalizing them. It's like road safety, what they do, that they say speed governor and all that kind of, without teaching, and then you go just on the road and they just block you and say, yes, of course. Oh, no. We know that there are challenges. There are challenges. Yes. Even when we were doing the national healthcare waste management, these things, there were the Nigeria company. There are challenges because the state, it's about territorial this thing, who's in charge. And like we say, we run a federal system. And if we have to run a federal system, then we should run it properly. In the United States of America, the EPA has its delineated function. It puts the broad outline on the minimum standard, that they don't go to you can't move from Washington and start going to New Jersey, start chasing people around. But the states are expected to use that, the guideline, adapt it, minimum standard. When the federal agencies come in, is you don't meet those requirements. But here, I agree with you. Here, sometimes federal agencies want to do the state functions, forgetting that we run a federal system. Compliance with countries' environmental regulations demonstrates your commitment to improving the environment. It shows you are a responsible, future-focused organization. And by future, we are talking about our future generations, our children, born and unborn, because we must leave this place a better place. Or if we can't improve on it, let us not destroy it. Can reduce insurance cover costs, because environmental costs are now being put into insurance. You went to Bank of Industry today and all that. They are part of. They will check if you come to your organization. How do you manage your environmental challenges of your company? That's part of what Bank of Industry will look at. And if you're going for insurance, when they see all this, it will determine whether, because they don't want Nigeria coming to find you, it adds to the cost of running that business. It can increase employee engagement in the that they are working in an environmentally friendly organization. It gives them self-pride that our company meets standards and regulations. Next slide. The high-level structure for environmental management, these are the critical things in ISO 14001. You plan, then you do, then you check, then you act, which is implementation. We will not go into all the details, understanding organization and its context, the needs and expectations of interested parties. But the important, what I just want you, if you don't remember, is there are 4 key steps in ISO 14001. It is about planning for your organization. You understand the challenges that your environmental challenges that your organization has. How can you do things better? How can you get more efficient? How can you pollute less? How can you use less resources? Okay, so if you contextualize and plan, then you move to the system of you do. You have to do about correcting these things that you have found out. Operation, resources, competence, awareness, communication, documented information. And one critical thing is our personnel capacity building. You have to, we keep talking about awareness creation, awareness creation, awareness creation. You guys are here, that's the awareness creation. Now you understand what the challenges are. It must be brought into the organization, into the factory, so that us, even the cleaner, because housekeeping is a core, proper housekeeping is a core part of ISO 14001. And it saves you so much costs and resources if you implement proper, as simple as it sounds and as simple as it looks. But that's the beginning. So you must get all your staff training, get an expert, let them talk to them. If you keep them like this, you tell me, and maybe you just give me small 500,000 and put me in a hotel, and then I can talk to your staff for like one day. You know what I mean. So by the time I finish with your, then they are more conscious of the challenges and how to run the company well. And then you will check performance evaluation. Are we doing okay? All these things that we have been taught, all these things that we are supposed to be doing, and then improvements and slide. Well, how does ISO 14001 work? What are the environmental issues? The environmental issues that we are looking at is in another. Sometimes you outsource some activities, right? You employ some people to come and work, or you give them some things outside, fabricate for me, do this. Planned or unplanned changes in the company, environmental aspects of product life cycle, transportation. I talked about organic, I use that as an example. Transportation, end of life disposal. At the end of the day, how are you going to dispose of these materials? We are talking about electronic waste now. Electronic waste is a huge global challenge. And in Nigeria, there's a lot of dumping because to manage electronic waste is very, very, very expensive. So what most of the OECD countries are doing is that they are shipping in the name of selling tokumbo to us. They are shipping their electronic waste down to us. We buy second-hand TV, you buy second-hand radio, you buy second-hand phone, you buy all these things are waste, disposing of their waste. The question is, how are we going to manage this waste ultimately? Because they are very, very, very harmful. And a lot of this is, if you get to what? Oh yeah, they are doing a lot. That's what we're saying. They are doing a lot. I'm not saying they are doing quite a lot of work in context. What we're saying is that we must be aware when we are bringing all these things, because when you get to Europe, you walk the streets, you'll see a lot of our boys, not just Nigerians, but a lot of Africans going from dustbin to dustbin. They are picking, things, and then they have containers. when the one container is full, they ship it down. And this is a way of saving these people from using money to treat these their electronic wastes in their home countries. And so it is shipped down to us here. We find it useful, but the point is that how do we ultimately manage? Because most of this is a few years they are all gone. The laptops that, most of them are towards the end of life, and we have to then treat them. And most of the time, we just carry them and put in our dust, in our refuse bins, and they get into our water bodies. And tomorrow we are talking about kidney issues, we're talking about liver issues. But these are the challenges we have. Organizations are of interest associated with threats and opportunities. Well, next slide. Like I said earlier, the trainings we do in ISO 14001, the organization must develop an effective system that meets the requirements of the standard. Document, and I keep hammering on it, and I've said it more than 10 times. Documentation, it is not a question of teaching. Everything must be documented. If when I used to train in the oil industry, there's health HSE plans. When we come, the first thing is, where is your plan? You must have it physically documented, how you will do things. It's not a question of that I have trained my people. You will have them placed on the walls, and every documentation is critical in resource efficient and cleaner production systems. ISO 14001. So first thing you must remember is documentation of the process. Follow a plan to do and to act approach, which is what we have talked earlier. Plan. Establish the objectives and processes needed to deliver the results in line with the environmental management system. Do. Implement the needed processes of the EMS. Check. Check the processes against the policy, objectives, targets, regulations, and report on the results. That is auditing. And then act. Take actions that will continually improve the environmental management system. Okay, next. Well, just so that it's pictorial, so I usually tell a better story. Say what you intend to do what you say, record what you did, check on the result, act on the difference. So this is just the cycle. Check, plan, do, check, and act. The principles and elements of an environmental management system. The environmental management system model follows the basic view of an organization which subscribes to the following principles. Principle 1, commitment and policy principle. An organization should define its environmental policy and ensure commitment to the environmental management system. And I have said it here, you must have it written down. You must have it, what is it called? Yes, on the board, and the ones you put on your, around, your people should come in. When they come into the factory, they will say, don't do this. Always off the tap before you go, right? Ensure the tap is blocked. Put off all lights. Thank you. Remove the AC this thing from the socket. All those details, those details, you might look to think that they are simple things, but just that visual reminder is critical. It's very, very important. You might spend some money to print all those things, but they are going to save you money on the long run, including accidents and damages. Principle 2, planning. An organization should formulate a plan to fulfill its environmental policy. Self-explanatory. Principle 3, implementation. For effective implementation, an organization should develop the capabilities and support mechanisms necessary to achieve its environmental policy, objectives, and targets. Principle 4, measurement and evaluation. And what did I say yesterday? That we move beyond monitoring and evaluation What did I say we've added now? Yes, I'm learning. Yes, you're very correct. You said you are. Yes, monitoring, evaluation, and learning. Because there's no point just monitoring and evaluating. Yeah, you haven't learned anything. So we don't talk about M and E any longer. We talk about MEL now. Okay, that learning from your mistakes, from the things you've done right, because you learn from what you've done right. What you've done right, you want to keep them or improve on them. The mistakes you've made, you want to correct them. So we do monitoring, evaluation, and learning now. So measurement and evaluation, an organization should measure, monitor, and evaluate its environmental performance, and I will add and learn from it. Okay. Principle 5, review. This terms is an old lecture. Don't worry, I'm going to upgrade it very soon. Principle 5, review and improvement. An organization should review and continually improve its environmental management system with the objective of improving its overall environmental performance based on lessons learned. Okay. Principle 6, continuous improvement. Continuous improvement in environmental performance is assessed in periodic reviews or audits against objectives and targets. So you should at least on the regular basis on because once bring in an auditor. Just don't assume it costs a little bit of money, but an environmental audit is necessary. Somebody comes, he has his checklist, his template, he knows what he's looking for, and goes through your documentation processes, your management processes, goes through your physical environment, and then goes around your facility and all that. From his checklist and from experience, advises you, does you a report, and then you know areas where you can improve on. That's what auditing is all about. But like I said, on the long run, it saves you a lot of money. Because nothing. Remember what the first line that we put when we started this is that there is no free lunch. There's no free lunch. Every good thing, better soup, na money they can. So if you want to run a proper functional organization, that is that's why let's ask ourselves, how come that the OECD countries, all these the Western European countries that are doing so well technologically, production and everything, they spend so much money on these things. And that we that don't spend are not doing as well. It's because everything is tick, 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 functions effectively. These little details that we take for granted are taken seriously. Water drops will not drop because as it's dropping, it's spoiling something, it's affecting your production system. These little details, the electric motor, if you bring out that is consuming too much power, too much energy, if you change to this, that it's going to save you money. On the short term, it might cost you money, but on the long run, over a period of 5 years, then you would have saved so much money, probably thousands and thousands over. Okay, that's what they do, and that's why they are very successful. That's why you'll see companies that have lasted 100 years, 400 years. Guinness, Arthur Guinness, let's mention some of them. It's over, has been 18 something, right? And they are still producing. Here, we set up companies because we don't put the fundamentals in place and pay this little that make the system work. Once the thing goes, the thing shuts down. And these are the issues. We must start doing things correctly. Everything that functions well costs a little bit of money. When we're talking about these RECP, IEE things, they will cost you a little money to do things, but it will save you so much money on the long run. That's what your men like this are trained for. That's what they are there for. To come in, look at these things, advise you properly, show you where areas of deficit, where you are making mistakes, where you can cut your costs, where you can improve the quality of production, where even labeling challenges, how you can transport better. All these details are what the RECP person and IEE person will do for you. And that's what these trainings are. That on the long run, it is cheaper, more effective, more sustainable. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah, the implementation steps. Don't worry, we're almost there. An implementation covers education on the content of, determines your position with regards to the environment and the requirements of ISO 14001, analyzes the shortcomings, gap analysis, and closes the gaps, the timeline of the implementation steps based on the gap analysis, run the environmental management system, collect records, and make improvements before your registration audit. Because ultimately, most what you're targeting, if we are to do, well, people like you that are manufacturers, is to get your ISO 14001 registration. For you to be able to sell a lot of these your products outside Nigeria and to get, you must get these certifications. Yeah? That's what I'm saying. You get the certification for you to be able to sell in their market, showing that your production system meets these fundamental environmental standards. That's what it is all about. So if you haven't, so the essence is that you go through these systems and then ultimately go for the audit is done, and then you are certified that your production process meets ISO 14001 standards. And that way you can now play with the big boys, right? In the international market. Bring your products from here. They want to make sure that you, because these are part of how they ensure that the impact on the environment, the challenges that we face as a world. It's one world. What we do here impacts everybody. If climate change is destroying the world, the glacial ice caps that are melting and leading to sea level rise and erosion and increased disease incidences of malaria and other vector-borne diseases, typhoid, cholera, and the rest of them. It's not, you might not have caused it here. It might have been, but the important is that the challenges become global and are impactful. So they want to make sure that you are producing in an environmentally sound manner. And if you don't get that certification, you will not be able to play in the international market. You must determine your position with regards to the environment. Are the gaps that need to be breached, have they been breached? When the audits, that's why I said it. I keep mentioning it. You need that one. Yes, please. Yes, I like people. I like questions because it makes the information.
Wanted to ask if you could give like hypothetical case. Okay, I wanted to ask if you could give like a hypothetical case of the requirement for protection and the hypothetical work with the requirement, how it to get certified.
Okay, that's what we've been saying that these processes that we've been talking about are the processes for achieving ISO 14001. Before you go to your certification, you must have gone through all this process. You must do your planning. You must do your checks in your system. You must train your personnel. You must put all those things. Then there are standard body parts for certification, and then you invite them, and then you audit your firm. Yeah, those audits. The audits are one compliant organization, and like I said, you can now trade and sell in the international marketplace. Okay, but apart from sales and business, the important. Yes, of course, you have to. Yes, it has. No. It's not a one-off thing. If you get into the ISO system, you have to do it. I think biannually. Biannually, they come and audit you again to ensure that you have not slipped. If you have slipped, you cannot. So your certificate says from this period, just like you're from Federal Ministry of Environment, you give us certification to practice, and you say that every year we should come and renew. But you people have adjusted. There was one you gave me that it said for 4 years, right? How many years now? 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. You gave us a 2-year one. And in 2 years' time, we have to come back again to show that meet the standard. So that's the same thing with ISO, because if they certify you and just go away, I mean, everybody will relax. So biannually they come and assess you again that company is still meeting standards. If there have been improvement or challenges that they have, you know, noted or they've added, then you have to lift yourself to that level again. That's how the system works. They said, like I said, they started with that 9,000 series, which was quality management system. But we have now moved up to 14,000 system because, like I said, environment has become a critical challenge, and so the world has now moved that the environmental challenges are even more important than just talking about quality. But if you do environmental management systems properly, then you have covered quality management as well. So ISO 14,000 series encompasses ISO 9,000 series plus more, and that's what it's about. Yeah, yeah, 14,001. Just like, huh? Yeah, they're all integrated. And like I said, there are more than 19,000 ISO standards globally. There is for the food industry, there is for the auto industry, there is that is what has made their system to function. It is this idea about meeting standards and ensuring. So you cannot go below a certain standard in production. Here, anything goes. And that's why things don't work. And until we key into the ISO series and start insisting that companies must meet these basic standards, we are not going anywhere. We cannot compete in the international marketplace. And like one of the presidential candidates said, it's production, production, production. If you don't produce, you will die. We cannot keep living on aid. This country, we think that AIDS, no country has survived on AIDS. You have seen what is happening with USAID and the rest of them. But the important thing is that a country as blessed as Nigeria, as rich as Nigeria, with so much intellectual capacity, we are probably the most educated nation on earth. Probably the most educated nation on earth when you think of it. There's no field of human endeavor anywhere in the world where you will not see a top Nigerian. But what's the problem? We can't do it here, not because we don't want to do it, but because the system will not allow you to do it. We have allowed a few clowns, and I say it openly, I say it everywhere, I say it in World Bank for every day. We have allowed, and until all of us start speaking out. Sometimes when we do these things, we have to talk a little politics because it affects all of us. I have children, and my children will soon have children, and I don't expect that my children will have to run away from here to go and live in another man's land that they have developed. You've seen what Trump is saying, and it will keep getting worse. It will keep getting worse. Others, the right wing, they are rising all over Europe. They want immigrants to leave. Go and develop your place. And we have a finer place than them. This is the most beautiful part of the earth. And so the critical issue is that we must start producing, but to produce and be able to compete globally, we must meet these basic standards. And that is where RECP and IEE come to play. If you don't take it seriously, then you'll never be able to compete in the global community. Your ED. Practical. Yes, please. Sorry, sir.
It's very loud. It's okay. So my question is for the ISO 14001, is it only for organizational certifications or is there a provision for individual certifications, something like maybe for an environmental manager? Because I'm just thinking it shouldn't just be for organizations. There should also be. Exactly.
Definitely, you go through the course. There's a certification process, and you go through the course and do the exams, and then if you have done all, there are stages, and then when you get the stage, you're certified as an ISO 14001 expert, and that is when you can go to industries and do the audits because you have been trained. You know everything you need to check. right? And for each industry, you get their own template and then you look at it. So, but first and foremost, things that you need to do. There's a certification, and that's what makes you an ISO 14001 expert and auditor. Okay. Yeah.
I can't do without. Okay, because of video. So, as I was saying, as part of the deliverables of this project, there is a component that seeks to also develop capacities of auditors. And that is where, at the introductory stage, I mentioned that mix in the hall, a mix of participants. You have people that, by reading up their background and their qualifications, they are already more like working in some of this terrain already. So if part of the intention is to develop capacity locally so that we can increase the number of experts on this that we have in the country, then a part of it was included as part of what we'll be delivering. SON is handling that component, of course, with us. They will take auditors through the process of certification. As per supporting those that may likely benefit from it, there are two things. One is to train something and expose someone to something. Because it's ISO, the second leg is payment. Because you need to pay. It's just like project management. If it's US, you know who to pay to. If it's UK, you know it's Prince 2. So something like that. But that will not be for everybody. And that is why when we come for training like this, we are watching everybody. We are watching the role you are playing. We are watching the time you step in. We are watching your commitment. We are looking at a whole lot of things. I know MPC mentioned something around something to give us a guide yesterday. And I was told somebody was more like worried. You want to separate us. You want to. These are knowledge environment. And if you are bringing new things into a nation, particularly when that thing is coming as part of counterpart thing that the federal government has signed with an international organization, we owe ourselves and the country the duty to ensure when we look back 5 years down the line, we can say this person is from this project, this person is from this project. I have somebody in the house that just met me yesterday and heard the name and said, "So you are the Dr. Shidibe that I've been exchanging mails with." It's on another project altogether that we were doing. Part of it is also certification, doing under another project, but in partnership with our institution because they have the mandate as a professional institute to handle the certification. So, but give and take, whenever they are doing anything on it today, they will still latch on, invite those stakeholders to be part of it. That was why I said at the beginning, one, let's network. Two, let's put up our best. Three, because once you have the certification, nobody can take it away from you. You may even decide to be on your own and be rendering the service to industry and making your money. Thank you. I hope I've been able to.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You've explained it better than I would have done. So, practical help developing an environmental management program. Well, yeah, I mean, these are commitment and policy, environmental policy and commitment. Well, planning. You set your objective. You might say something like water. Minimize water use where technically and commercially possible. And what are your targets? To reduce water consumption at selected sites by 15% of present levels in 1 year. So get the picture I'm trying to paint. You plan, set goals and the targets and the timeline that within this period of time, we are going to cut our water usage and wastage by factor. Water reuse, because I mentioned yesterday that reuse, you can recycle, you can reuse, you can, when it comes out, somebody was talking about, when he was talking yesterday about the boiler system, you push it, it comes, it cools, right? It cools the plant, and then it's sent back. And he was asking, how can you reduce energy loss along the way? They equally, when that goes out, you can reuse the water, send it back, find a way to reduce the temperature. By the time it gets there, you recool instead of allowing it to go into the drainage system. Another thing is to channel it more other useful as a resource. Let's say again, something like water, if you have an incineration system where you burn wastes, okay, and then the waste that burning is generating quite a lot of heat. Generators, rotary kiln is at about temperatures of 1,200 degrees Celsius, or at least up 1,000 degrees centigrade. Phenomenal. And this energy, if you leave it, is wasted. But if you just add a boiler system to it, in that place, how do we generate electricity? It's about steam. The steam is coming out of it, and you attach a turbine to it. You can generate power from incineration. I'm just using that as a typical example. So these are things that you plan, and in doing this, resource efficient cleaner, you can cut your energy, produce your own electricity from the wastes you are you're generating and managing. Okay, I gave the example of Presco oil yesterday, didn't I? I mentioned that Presco oil, we went there for an audit, and we asked them, okay, your when you finish doing the palm kernel seeds and you've extracted and you're producing your palm oil and all the other products from it, what about that bunch that some of us will be interested in buying those bunch, so that people that do black soap. I'm into medicine. Where's my colleague now that does medicinal plants? Okay, so that we can, and they said no, we can't. We don't sell. We use the bunch. That's what we use for electricity. So it's basically, so they after they've extracted that, they now that bunch dry it, and then they two kilns, and then it generates the heat, and they generate steam, and they have added their turbine, and the electricity they use in Presco is not from the national grid, and because of it, they don't have power challenges, and so they've cut their costs from waste. And what did I say yesterday? That one man's waste is another man's raw material. Is that not what I said yesterday? So that's a typical example where waste from the palm oil production has become raw material for the electricity production system. Okay, and so you can imagine the amount of resources that they are saving, plus costs that they have cost, and they have better control. So their system works optimally. They are not dependent on whether NEPA takes light. They don't have to buy UPS. They don't have to buy switch gears and all that kind of thing. That's what we are talking about. That's planning. That's thinking out of and making things function. Okay, we can cut a lot of these costs, and that's what resource efficiency is about. That you can do things better, save costs, and save the environment. Because now, waste that they would have taken, and don't forget, after they burn that, they can sell part of that to produce black soap. Okay? And that's another income. That's another use of raw material. That's something that's saving the environment. Okay? So these are the things that we are talking about, and that they must be tied together. And until industry, and that's why in the resource efficient and cleaner production, we encourage the idea of industrial parks. I mentioned it yesterday, where industries, you have industrial parks where you have different industries, because one man's raw material the waste is another man's raw material. So the one coming out from your own, another company could be, what example did I use yesterday? I said something like people that make yam porridge, right? I use the yam porridge example. People that make fufu, that if you have in this industrial park, people who are peeling yam, peeling potatoes, peeling plantain, and it's large quantity. When you think of the, I said, yeah, if you think about the market, somebody gets and goes around and collects all these bags, yam, potatoes, plantain, banana, and then cassava, and dries them, and then it could be raw material for animal feeds, but it could equally be raw materials for soap production. It could equally be raw material for fertilizers. There are so many other things that these things can be used for. So in industrial parks, we try to get an ecosystem where it's interdependent on one another, so that you waste less and you pollute less. What that you reduce your raw materials use, share facilities, share costs, and everything. So the important, and like I said yesterday, if you don't forget that really, indeed, nothing is really. And there was something I said about landfills yesterday. What did I say about landfills? I said something very important that I said you people should go with yesterday. Thank you. At least I'm happy somebody was listening. That landfills, anything is a missed opportunity, because those things that what we are doing in Nigeria, if you get to do here now, you will see the landfill. The field, it's not a sanitary landfill, it's ordinary dump site, but it's hectares and hectares. These are things that could have been used. We said over 60% of our waste are biodegradable. So it is a pity that where other people are converting, and that's what all these things that we're talking about, we are wasting our own, polluting the environment, it's getting into groundwater. We are mixing batteries with electronic waste, with biodegradable waste, with food material. We just carry everything. We were talking about we are doing trainings on healthcare waste management, and it's in our country. Unfortunately, we still carry waste from health facilities. Yes, we talk about segregation and the segregation of waste at source and putting them in plastic bags and all that. But what happens after all that segregation in the hospitals and all that? The trucks come and just carry bam, mix it with municipal solid waste and go and dump all of them. It's what happens whether we accept it or not.